This video will talk about what causes Alzheimer's disease and its risk factors and genetics. This is the first video in a series that aims to provide information about the disease and coping strategies for patients, families, and caregivers. Alzheimer's disease, discovered by Dr. Alois Alzheimer in 1906, is a brain disorder that gradually destroys memory and thinking skills, at the end, the ability to perform the most basic tasks. It is the leading cause of dementia in older people. It is also the third leading cause of death in the elderly, after heart disease and cancer. Before we look into the actual effects of Alzheimer's disease on our brain, it is helpful to learn some basics first. In a healthy human brain, there are tens of billions of neurons. They are responsible for the communication between different parts of the brain, as well as between the brain to the muscles and organs of the body. The following are important biological processes in neurons. Communication. Neurons are constantly in touch with neighboring brain cells. They communicate with one another at neurotransmitter chemicals at synapses. According to scientists, one neuron may have up to 7,000 synaptic connections with other neurons. Metabolism. The breaking down of chemicals and nutrients within a cell. It is critical to healthy cell function and survival. Repair, remodeling, and regeneration. Neurons last our entire lifetime, so they must constantly maintain and repair themselves. So how does Alzheimer's disease affect the brain? The brain shrinks to some extent with normal aging but never loses a large number of neurons. But the damage in Alzheimer's disease is extensive. Many neurons stop working, lose connections with other neurons, and eventually die. Alzheimer's disease typically begins by attacking memory-related areas of the brain, such as the entorhinal cortex and hippocampus. Later, it affects areas of the cerebral cortex that are responsible for language, reasoning, and social behavior. Many other areas of the brain are eventually damaged. A person with Alzheimer's disease gradually loses the ability to live and function independently over time. In the end, the disease is fatal. Next, let's take a closer look into the chemical and biological details, then explore the risk factors of Alzheimer's disease. Main characteristics of the brain with Alzheimer's. A person with Alzheimer's disease's brain undergoes numerous molecular and cellular changes. Amyloid plaques. In Alzheimer's, the protein beta amyloid appears in various distinct molecular forms. They are fragments of a larger protein called amyloid precursor protein, APP. One type, beta amyloid 42, is known to be particularly dangerous. Abnormal quantities of this naturally occurring protein clump together in the Alzheimer's brain to form plaques that accumulate between neurons and impede cell function. Neurofibrillary tangles. Neurofibrillary tangles are aberrant clumps of tau protein that form inside neurons. Tau binds to and stabilizes microtubules in healthy neurons. However, abnormal chemical changes in Alzheimer's disease lead tau to detach from microtubules and attach to other tau molecules, generating threads that eventually unite to create tangles inside neurons. These tangles obstruct the transport mechanism of the cell and impair synaptic contact between neurons. To make matters worse, tau and beta amyloid proteins, as well as several other variables, are involved in a more intricate interplay. The tau builds up in memory-related areas of the brain. Between neurons, beta amyloid collects into plaques. When beta amyloid levels reach a critical level, tau spreads rapidly throughout the brain, causing severe damage. Chronic inflammation. The accumulation of glial cells, which normal function is to keep the brain clean, may also cause chronic inflammation. Microglia, a type of glial cell, is in charge of cleaning up waste and toxins. However, in Alzheimer's disease, microglia fail to clear away waste, debris, and protein collections, including beta amyloid plaques. Vascular contributions. People with dementia frequently have other brain problems, such as beta amyloid deposits in arteries, atherosclerosis, and mini-strokes. These vascular problems may lead to reduced blood flow and oxygen to the brain and the damage of the blood-brain barrier. A defective blood-brain barrier inhibits glucose from reaching the brain and the clearance of harmful beta amyloid and tau proteins in Alzheimer's patients. More inflammation happens as a result. Now, we have explained what Alzheimer's disease is and how it affects our brain in the simplest terms. You might wonder, can Alzheimer's disease pass through generations by genes? Unfortunately, it is possible. But let's talk about other risk factors first. First, aging and Alzheimer's risk. The most major known risk factor for the condition is advanced age. Beyond the age of 65, the number of people with Alzheimer's disease doubles every 5 years. Alzheimer's disease affects about a third of adults aged 85 and up. Secondly, health, environmental, and lifestyle factors. Many factors may play a role in the development and progression of Alzheimer's disease. People with vascular diseases including heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure, as well as metabolic diseases like diabetes and obesity, are more likely to have a cognitive loss. To keep healthy as we age, we should eat well, exercise regularly, socialize, sleep well, and engage in mentally stimulating activities. A healthy and active lifestyle may also help to minimize the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Thirdly, factors from early life may also play a role. Higher levels of education, for example, have been associated with a lower incidence of dementia in research. Now, we turn to the role of genetics in Alzheimer's disease. If a person inherits particular genes from a parent, the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease may increase. Having a parent with Alzheimer's disease, on the other hand, does not automatically guarantee that someone will develop the disease. Late-onset Alzheimer's disease. Most people with Alzheimer's have the late-onset form of the disease, with symptoms appearing in their mid-60s and later. Although no single gene causes late-onset Alzheimer's disease, a genetic variant of the apolipoprotein E, or APO gene on chromosome 19 does enhance a person's risk. The APO gene is involved in making a protein that aids in the transportation of cholesterol and other forms of fat through the bloodstream. APO appears in a variety of forms or alleles. Each person inherits 2 APO alleles, one from each biological parent. The APO2 gene is uncommon, although it may offer some protection against the condition. If a person with this allele develops Alzheimer's disease, it usually happens later in life than if they have the APO4 gene variety. APO4 raises the risk of Alzheimer's disease and is linked to a younger onset of the disease. Having 1 or 2 APO4 alleles raises the risk of Alzheimer's disease. About 25% of persons have 1 copy of APO4, while just 2 to 3% have 2 copies. Early onset Alzheimer's disease. Early onset Alzheimer's disease accounts for less than 10% of all Alzheimer's patients. It usually happens between the ages of 30 and 60. Amyloid precursor protein or APP on chromosome 21, presenilin 1 or PSEN1 on chromosome 14, and presenilin 2 or PSEN2 on chromosome 1 are the 3 genes that cause some cases. Mutations in these genes cause abnormal proteins to be produced, which are associated with the disease. Each of these mutations contributes to the breakdown of APP, a step in the process that leads to the formation of damaging amyloid plaques, which are characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. A child with a genetic mutation in one of these 3 genes has a 50-50 probability of receiving that mutation from the biological mother or father. If the mutation is inherited, the child has an extremely high chance of acquiring Alzheimer's disease at a young age. Other genetic risk variations are being investigated. Down syndrome. Many people with Down syndrome, but not all, develop early-onset Alzheimer's disease. People with Down syndrome are born with an extra copy of chromosome 21, which carries the gene that produces amyloid precursor protein. Too much APP leads to a buildup of beta amyloid plaques in the brain. Most people with Down syndrome have these plaques by the age of 40, along with other protein deposits such as tau tangles. These anomalies impair brain cell function and increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's symptoms. According to estimates, 50% or more of people with Down syndrome will develop dementia as they age due to Alzheimer's disease. Genetic test for Alzheimer's. Is there a genetic test for Alzheimer's disease that we can use to predict our chances of getting it? A blood test can determine which APO alleles a person have, but cannot predict who will or will not develop Alzheimer's disease. APO testing is currently used primarily in research settings. Physicians also use genetic testing to help diagnose early-onset Alzheimer's disease and to screen people who have a strong family history of Alzheimer's or related brain disease. Now, this video is completed. In the next few videos, I will talk about symptoms and diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Comment to share your thoughts. If you want more information on topics of older adult health, subscribe to the channel.